Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial for the spellcasting system. And in this tutorial, we'll be talking about how to handle checking if you have enough mana before you cast a spell, and reducing the mana value once you have casted a spell. We're also going to be talking about various spell types. In this tutorial in particular, we'll be talking about instant spells, as in spells that do damage to the target right when they are casted. We're also going to be talking about healing spells. Also going to be talking about dealing damage with spells. And if there is enough time at the end, I'll also be talking about damage over time spells and spells that heal over time as well. So let's get started. This tutorial, I'm starting pretty much where I left off with the implementation of the character system. Sorry, the spell system to my character pawn. And pretty much the only thing I've done since is I've just added my custom character system, which just handles my character stats. If you have no such a system that handles your character stats, it will be sufficient to have 4 variables. One to hold your character's health, another one to hold your character's maximum health, because ideally you want to have a maximum health and a sort of current health. So, for example, if you're casting a healing spell, you don't want the heal to set your health over the maximum sort of threshold. And the same for mana or energy or whatever you're calling for stat that you use for casting spells. So let's get started. Handling something such as checking if there is enough mana to cast a spell is very, very simple. All we need to do is, just before we call the cast function, what we do is we'll get the current spell that's currently selected. We can break the struct that we have received from the function and get the current mana cost of the spell that is about to be casted. Also, what we need to do at this point is, I'll be using my custom character system for this, is get our current mana value that we have. And what we also need to do is we need to compare the value of the mana that the character has to the cost of the spell that we are about to cast. So all we need to do is just create a branch, and the conditional statement will be if our mana value is greater or equal to the cost of the spell that we just about to cast. If it is, then we can proceed with casting. That's pretty straightforward. We can check if this indeed works. Just to make sure, what I'm gonna do is, if we don't have enough mana, I'm just gonna print a message to the screen saying not enough mana. So in this case, if I do not have enough mana, then it should print a message saying I don't have enough mana. If I do have enough mana, it should indeed cast the spell. This will be also a good point to make sure that your spell actually has a cost. So this is the spell that we created in the first implementation tutorial, and as you can see, it says mana 0. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set mana cost to 50. I'm gonna save it and I'm gonna run my game. And my character system has a little custom HUD I have, and the second bar from the top is the mana bar, and it goes from 0 to 100. So since the mana cost of the spell is 50, I should be able to cast the spell, and indeed I can. So just to show you, what I'm going to do is set the mana value of the spell to greater than 100. That means now I should not be able to cast the spell, and it should print a message saying that I don't have enough mana. And indeed it does. No fire being casted. And it says I don't have enough mana. Okay, I'm gonna return the value again to something that I can cast. I'm gonna go back to my character system, and I'm gonna be dealing with handling the mana reduction on upon a successful cast. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a branch, get the success value, and assuming that there is a success, what we want to do is we want to get the current mana value of our character. So I'm using my custom character system again, and I'll just git stat, and I'll get my current mana value. And if the cast has been successful, it's true, then I'll get the current mana value. I'll also get the mana cost of the spell. So I can just break the struct that's returned by the cast function, and I can get the mana value. And what I'm going to do is deduct the cost of the spell from my current mana value. And I'm going to set my current mana value to be equal to the current mana value minus the spell cost. And that's pretty much it. You don't have to do anything else. And now if I run the game, I cast a spell, you can see that the mana values indeed go down, and then I don't have enough mana to cast a spell. And if I do, I can cast the spell successfully, as you can see. That was pretty straightforward. Next thing we're gonna be talking about is how to deal with something like having your spell cause damage. And this will be pretty simple, and it would be something that you have to do in your spell's logic. So I'm gonna open up the spell that I've created in the first tutorial that shows how to implement the system. And I could use the sample fireball spell that comes with the tutorial as well. With the spell system, it doesn't really matter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an event on begin overlap. Event actor begin overlap. By default, spells don't collide with actors, and that is said because if you were to cast a spell and it would be within the collision range of your character, you do not want that spell to collide with the character as you're casting it. So we can use a actor begin overlap to get if there is a actor that's currently at the same place as the spell is. So we can detect if there is an enemy and if the spell should do damage to that enemy and so. And in this case, all we would do is we would cast the actor to whatever your enemy pawn class is. In this case, we don't have an enemy pawn class, so what we are going to do is we are gonna create a very, very simple pawn. Create a new blueprint, and we're gonna base this on pawn. We're gonna call this sample enemy. And this sample enemy is We'll give him a mesh. And we could use you can pretty much use anything if you wanted to. I mean, if you want to specify a specific, if you want to specify a certain your own animated character or whatever, and you can do that, and there are tons of tutorials how to do that. In this case, we just want something that we can deal damage to, so it doesn't really matter what do we use. We could use a destructible wall mesh, for example. We'll get the door, and then what we'll do, we'll destroy the door upon causing damage to it. We could give the door a health value. You see, let's give the door a health value. And we'll set this health value to 100. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it public so we can access it from our spell. You could also implement something like an interface or so that would, so you have a set of functions that you can call, and you can add to any pawn without having to cast the pawn to the specific pawn class. In this case, we're gonna just have a health value, and we're gonna have a tick event just to check if the health value is below 0. And once the health value reaches below 0, once it reaches 0, then what we want to do is destroy this actor. I'm gonna place our pawn here. You may need to set up a collision. Guess we don't need to in this case. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back to our spell, and we'll do event actor begin overlap. And upon this event, we're gonna get the other actor, and we're gonna cast this actor to our pawn. In this case, our pawn class is sample enemy. We're gonna cast it to sample enemy. If the cast fails, it means that the actor was not a pawn. So we're gonna cast to our sample enemy, and as sample enemy, we're gonna get the health value. And we are going to reduce this health value by the spell power of the spell. So what we're gonna do is we can do get spell, break the spell struct that's returned, we can get the mana value, the power value of the spell. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the health value of the pawn that we just hit with the spell, and we're gonna set it to the current health minus power of the spell. And it should be as simple as that. And the spell should have done damage to the door pawn. I'm not sure what the damage of the spell is, may take a while. I'm gonna change the damage of the spell so it can actually destroy the door on a single hit. Though I suppose what I could do is I could check that it's actually doing damage. So we're gonna cast a spell on the door. And it is not doing damage. That is probably to do with the collision. So what we're gonna do is open the pawn and we are going to set a collision. We could also add a collision component, such as sphere or something similar. Should not be needed in this case. It is still not doing what it should. It's possible that the power of the actual spell is set to 0. Could explain this. So yes, in this case the spell power was set to 0. Which explains why we weren't doing any damage. So I've set the power to 50 now. Compile. And we're gonna run the game again. Cast the spell. Check that indeed it is causing damage. And it is still not causing damage. What we're gonna do for debugging purposes is on actor begin overlap, just to make sure that the actor is actually correctly overlapping. We're gonna print a string saying overlapping actor. And there seems to be an issue with it not overlapping our pawn, which is probably a problem with the pawn and not with the actual spell. So what I'm gonna do in this case is I'm gonna get rid of the sample pawn and just reuse the character. And I'm gonna modify the spell, so instead of casting to sample pawn, I'm gonna be casting to my character. And I'm gonna be getting my custom character system. I have to set to public for it to be visible. And I'm gonna be getting the house stat from it. I'm going to be reducing this health stat by the spell power. And I'm going to be setting my health stat to be equal to the health stat minus the power of the spell that the character gets hit by. In this case, we can see that there is a collision going on with my custom character, causing me to get damaged because the spell is being casted within the collision box of the character. What we could do is we could get it to avoid this, we could get it to ignore the character that has casted the spell. And there will be an update coming up for the spell system to deal with this as well, just to make it simpler. As of now, what you would need to do is modify the spell struct, and you would have to add a variable to hold the actor that has casted a spell, so you can sort of get rid of any collision that's with the actual caster, so you can avoid the caster from taking damage. But also what you could do is within your spell logic, you could simply just say if the actor your branch and say that the actor is not equal to character player. This would work in a single player situation. It would not work in a multiplayer situation, but there will be an update to deal with this for the spell system coming up within the next couple of days. I'm working with another developer and he's helping me to set up the system so everything properly works within a multiplayer environment. So we're gonna just check that the player being hit is not the same player that has casted in this case. And we're also gonna add a check to character so we can detect that it has been hit. But all we're gonna do is once it has been hit and its health has been reduced, then once the health reaches 0, we want to print that the character is dead. So what we are gonna do is we need to get the health stat. And all we're gonna do is on take. Just gonna move this. On take, we are just gonna do a branch and check that the health value is below 0. If it is, sorry, other way around. It is below 0. If it is indeed below 0, then we want to print target is dead. Just so we can check that indeed we can hit the target and to kill it. We need to do a couple of casts to actually kill the target. And we can see it says target is dead. Means we have successfully dealt damage to the pawn. And indeed has been forced to die. We could also, instead of printing a string, we could destroy the actor. And that's how you could deal with handling damage or destroying actors on hit. Assuming that your pawn is set up, you wouldn't have to go through the issue that I was having with the collision. And all you would need to do within your spell is just get event actor begin overlap and just get the actor that is overlapping your spell, cast it to whatever your enemy pawn is, and just deduct the health value. That's all you would need to do. If you wanted to create a healing spell, you could go about it exactly the same way, except what you could do, I'm just gonna get rid of this. Actually, I'll keep it in, but I'm just gonna reverse the instead of deducing value. I'm gonna increase it. First of all, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up a spell that would heal the caster. So what I'm gonna do is just copy the function that we have set up to check mana and cast. And all I'm gonna do is, upon right click with mouse, right mouse button, if it's pressed, I'm gonna be treating this as a self cast. So I'm gonna set spell target to self. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go back to my spell, back to the event begin overlap, and I'm gonna get rid of the checking. And what I'm gonna do is get the current health stat, and I'm going to check that the current health stat is not greater than max health, because we don't want the heal to go too far. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna get max health, and I'm going to check that the value of max health is not greater, so it's either small, it must be smaller. If it's equal, there's no point doing casting a heals. So what I'm gonna do is just check that the stat is indeed smaller than my current health, and if it is, do a branch. I'm gonna get the spell that was just casted. I'm gonna break the spell struct, get the power, and I'm going to increase the spell value by the power value. Sorry, increase the spell. Increase the health value by the power of the spell. And I suppose instead of checking the max health, what I could do instead is check the max health after the cast. So just do what I'm gonna do is just get my max health stat, and I'm gonna do branch here. I'm gonna compare the value that's actually coming out of the calculation, and I'm gonna be making sure that this value is smaller or equal to the max health value. If it is, then I'm just gonna set my stat to be equal to the value calculated. Now, if it isn't, then what I'm gonna do is set the max health value. Sorry, set the current health value to be equal to my max health value. So pretty much just heal. The spell will just heal to a point of a max health. And that is all I should need to do to create a healing value and create a healing spell. What I'm also gonna do is, once we have healed the character, we want the spell to be destroyed. We don't want the spell to linger in the world. If I cast now, I should have been able to. Oh, sorry, I just realized I was pressing the wrong button. Something does not seem right. And indeed, the spell does not successfully cast. I'm gonna figure out what the problem is, and we have a